Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Chapter 4, The Leaky Cauldron. It took Harry several days to get used to strange new freedom. Never before he had been able to get up whenever he wanted, or eat whatever he fancied. He could even go wherever he liked, as long as it was in Diagon Alley. And as thing along Cobble Street was packed with the most fascinating wizarding shop in the world, Harry felt no desire to break his word to Fudge and stray back into the Muggle world. Harry ate breakfast each morning in Leaky Cauldron, where he liked to watch the other guests, funny little witches from from the country for days shopping, vulnerable looking wizard arguing over the latest article in Transfiguration Today, wild looking warlock Russian dwarf and once what looked suspiciously like a hag who ordered a plate of raw liver from behind a thick woolen balaclava. After breakfast, Harry would go into the backyard, take out his wand, tap a third brick from the left and from a dustbin, and stand back as the archway in Diagon Alley opened in the wall. He'd spend a long sunny day exploring the shop and eating under the brightly colored umbrella outside cafe, where where his few was where his fellow diner the Linscope, old boy, no more messing around with Moonshard C, or else discussing the case of Sirius Black. Personally, I won't let any of my children out alone till he's back in Azkaban. Harry didn't have to do his homework under the blanket by torchlight anymore. Now he could sit in the bright sunshine outside Florin Fawcett's ice cream parlor, finishing all his essay with the occasional help from Florin Fawcett himself, who, apart from knowing a great deal about medieval witch burning, gave Harry free Sunday every half hour. Once Harry had refilled his money bag with gold galleons and silver sickles and bronze nuts from his vault at Grizzard, he needed to exercise a lot of self-control not to spend the whole lot at once. He had to keep reminding himself that he had 5 years to go at Hogwarts, and how it would feel to ask the Dursley for money for spell books. So, to stop himself buying a handsome set of solid gold gobstone, he was sorely tempted, too, by the perfect moving model of the galaxy in large glass ball, which had meant he never had taken another astronomy lesson. But the thing that tested Harry's resolution most appeared in his favorite shop, Quality Quidditch Supplies. A week after he arrived at Leaky Cauldron, curious to know what the crowd in the shop was staring at, Harry edged his way inside and squeezed in among the excited witch and wizard until he glimpsed a newly erected podium on the witch's light mounted on the most magnificent broom he had ever seen in his life. Just come out, prototype, a square jaw wizard was telling his companion. It's the fastest broom in the world, isn't it, Dad? Squeaked a boy younger than Harry, with swing off his father's arm. Irish International Side just put in an order for 7 of these, Beauty, the porter of the shop told the crowd, and their favorite for the World Cup. A large witch in front of Harry moved, and he was able to read the sign next to the broom. The Firebolt. This state of the art racing brooms sport a streamlined, superfine handle badge, treated with a diamond hard polish, and a hand number with its own section number. Each individually selected brick, twig, and the broomtail has been honed to alpha formation, giving the Firebolt unsurpassable balance and pinpoint precision. The Firebolt was an acceleration of 0 to 150 miles an hour in 10 seconds, and incorporation and an unbreakable braking charm. Price and request. price on request. Harry didn't like to think how much gold the firebolt would cost. He'd never wanted to so wanted anything so much in his whole life, but he never lost a Quidditch match in this number 2000. And what was the point in emptying his Gridget vault for the firebolt when he had a very good broom already. Harry didn't ask for the prices, but he returned almost every day after that just to look at the firebolt. They were, however, things that Harry needed to buy. He went to the apothecary to replace his store of potion ingredients, and as his school robes were now several inches too short in arm and leg, he visited Madame Malkin robes for all occasions, bought new ones. Most important of all, he had to buy his new school book, which would include those for two new subjects, care of magical creature and division. Harry got surprised as he looked in the bookshop window, and instead of a usual display of golden bow spell book the size of a paving slab, were this large iron cage behind the glasses, which held about 100 copies of the Monster Book of Monster. Torn pages flying everywhere as the book grappled with each other, lock together in furious wrestling match, and snapping aggressively. Harry pulled his booklets out of his pocket and consulted it for the first time. The Monster Book of Monster was listed as a set of book for care of magical creature. Now Harry understood why Hagrid had said it would become useful. He felt relieved. He had been wondering whether Hagrid wanted to help with some terrifying new pet. As Harry entered Flourish and Blotts, the manager came hurrying toward him. "Hogwarts," he said abruptly, "come to get your new book?" "Yes," said Harry. "I need—" "Get out of the way," said the manager impatiently, brushing Harry aside. He drew the pair of thick gloves, picked up the large, knobbly walking stick, and proceeded toward the door of the monster book cage. "Hang on," said Harry quickly. "I've already got one of those." "Have you?" A look of enormous relief spread over the manager's face. "Thanks heaven for that. I've been bitten 5 times already this morning." A loud ripping noise rent the air. Two of the monster book had seized a third and were pulling it apart. "Stop it! Stop it!" cried the manager, poking the walking stick through the bars and knocking the book apart. "I'm never stocking them again. Never. It's been Bedlam. I thought we'd seen the worst when we bought 200 copies of the Invisible Book of Invisibility. Cost a fortune, and we never found them. Well, is there anything else I can help you with?" "Yes," Harry, looking down his booklets. "I need Unfogging the Future with consent by Cassandra Feltsky." "Ah, certain division, aren't you?" said the manager, stripping off his glove and leading Harry in the back of the shop, which was corner devoted to fortune telling. A small table was stacked with volumes such as Predict and Unpredictable until yourself against shock and broken ball, with fortune in turn full. "Here you are," said the manager, who climbed the set of step to take down the thick black-bounded book. "Unfogging the Future, a very good guide to all your basic fortune telling method. Palmistry, crystal ball, bird entrail." But Harry wasn't listening. His eye had fallen on another book, which is among a displayed small table. Death omens. What to do when you know the worst is coming. "Oh, I wouldn't read that if I were you," said the ensign lightly, looking to see what Harry was staring at. "You'll start seeing Death Omen everywhere. It's enough to frighten anyone to death." But Harry continued to stare at the front cover of the book. It showed a large black dog, large as a bear, with gleaming eyes. It looked oddly familiar. The assistant pressed Unfogging the Future into Harry's hand. "Anything else?" he said. "Yes," Harry, tearing his eyes away from the dog and dazedly consulting his booklets. "I need Intermediate Transfiguration and the Standard Book of Spell, Grade 3. Harry emerged from the floors and plots 10 minutes later with his new book under his arm and made his way back to the leaky cauldron, hardly noticing. Mm, hardly He tramped up the stairs to his room, went inside, and tipped his book onto his bed. Somebody had been into tidy. The window were open and was pouring inside. Harry could hear the buses rolling in by unseen middle street behind him, and the sound of invisible crowd below in the Dacian alley. He caught sight of himself in the mirror over the basin. It can't have been death omen, he told his reflection definitely. I was panicking when I saw that thing in Magla Crescent. It was just probably a stray dog. He raised He raised his hand automatically and tried to make his hair lie flat. You're fighting a losing battle there, dear, said his mirror in a wheezy voice. As the days slipped by, Harry started looking whether he went for a sign of Ron or Hermione. Plenty of Hogwarts students were arriving Dacian Alley now, with the start of their term so near. Harry met Seamus Finnegan and Dean Thomas, his fellow Gryffindor, in quality Quidditch supplies, for they too were ogling the firebolt. He also ran into the real Neville Longbottom, a round-faced, forgetful boy outside Flourish and Blot. Harry didn't stop to chat. Neville appeared to have mislaid his bookless, and was being told off by a very formidable-looking grandmother. Harry hoped she never found out that he'd pretend to be Neville. While on the run from the Ministry of Magic. Harry woke on the last day of the holiday thinking that would be at least met Ron and Hermione tomorrow on the Hogwarts Express. He got up, dressed, went for the last look at the firebolt, and was just wondering where to have lunch when someone yelled his name and he turned. They were both of them. There, both of them sitting outside Thornforth's ice cream parlor, Ron looking incredibly freckly, Hermione very brown, both waving frantically at him. Finally, said Ron, grinning at Harry as he sat down. We went at Leaky Cauldron, but they said you'd left, and we went to Flourish and Blotts and Madame Malkin's, and I got all my school stuff last week, Harry explained. And how come you know I'm staying at Leaky Cauldron? Dad, said Ron simply. Mr. Weasley, who worked at the Ministry of Magic. Mm-mm. Did you really blow up your Aunt Harry? Said Hermione in a very serious voice. I didn't mean to, said Harry while Ron roared with laughter. I just lost control. It's not funny, Ron, said Hermione sharply. Honestly, I'm amazed Harry wasn't expelled. So am I, admitted Harry. Forget expelled. I thought I was going to be arrested. He looked at Ron. Your dad doesn't know why Fudge let me off, does he? Probably because it's you, isn't it? Shrugged Harry. Shrugged Ron, still chuckling. Famous Harry Potter and all that. I'd hate to see what the ministry to do to me if I blow up an aunt. Mind you, they would dig me up first because Mom would have killed me. Anyway, you can ask Dad yourself in this evening. We're staying at the Leaky Cauldron tonight too, so you can come to King Cross with us tomorrow. Hermione's there as well. Hermione nodded, beaming. Mom and Dad dropped me off this morning with all my Hogwarts things. Excellent, said Harry happily. So, have you got all your new books and stuff? Look at this, said Ron, pulling a thin box out of bag and opening it. Brand new wand, 14-inch willow containing one unicorn tail hair. And we've got all our books. He pointed at a large back in his chair. What about those monster booga? The assistant nearly cried when he said we wanted two. What's all that, Hermione? Harry asked, pointing at not one but three bulging back of the chair next to her. Well, taking more new subject than you, aren't I? Said Hermione. Those are my book for arthromancy, care of magical creature, division, study of ancient runes, muggle study. What are you doing muggle studies for? Said Ron, rolling his eyes at Harry. You're muggle born. Your mom and dad are muggle. You already knew all about muggles. But it'll be fascinating to study them from the wizarding point of view, said Hermione earnestly. Are you planning to eat or sleep at all this year, Hermione? Asked Harry while Ron sniggered. Hermione ignored them. I've still got 10 galleons, she said, checking her purse. It's my birthday in September, and Mom and Dad gave me some money to get myself an early birthday present. How about a nice book? Said Ron innocently. No, I don't think so, said Hermione composedly. I really want an owl. I mean, Harry's got Hedwig, and you've got Errol. I have it, said Ron. Errol of family owls. All I have is Gabber. He pulled his pet rat out of his pocket, and I want to get him checked over, he added, placing Scabber on the table in front of him. I don't think Egypt agreed with him. Scout was looking thinner than usual, and there was definitely a nice droop in his whisker. There's a magical creature shop just over there, said Harry, who knew Daggin very well by now. You can see if they've got anything for Scabber, and Hermione can get her owl. So they paid for their ice cream and crossed the street to the magical immigrant. There wasn't much room inside. Every inch of the wall was hidden by cage. It was smelly and very noisy because of occupation of these cage rolls, squeaking, squawking, jabbering, or hissing. The witch behind the counter, advising a wizard on the care of double-ended newt. So Harry, Ron, and Hermione waited, examining the cage. A pair of enormous purple toad gulping wetly and feasting on dead blowflies. A gigantic tortoise with a jewel-encrusted shell was glittering near the window. Porch and his orange snail were oozing slowly up the side of the glass tank, and a fat white rabbit kept changing his top hat and back again on a loud popping noise, and then into the silk top hat, and back again with a loud popping noise. When there were cats of every color, a noisy cage of ravens, a basket of very funny custard-colored fur ball that were humming loudly, and on the counter a vast cage of sleek black rats, which were playing some sort of skipping game using their long bold tails. The double-end newt wizard left, and Ron approached the counter. It's my rat, he told the witch. He's been a bit off color. He's a bit off color ever since I brought him back from Egypt. Bang him on the counter, said the witch, pulling a pair of heavy black spectacles out of her pocket. Ron lifted Scabbard out of his inside pocket and placed him heavy black spectacle out of her pocket. Ron lifted Scabbard out of his inside pocket and placed him next to the cage of his fellow rat, who stopped their skipping trick and scuffled to the wire for a better look. Like nearly had everything Ron had owned. Scabbard the rat was a second-handed. He had once belonged to his own brother Percy, and a bit badder. Next to the glossy rat in the cage, he looked especially wobbagin. Said the witch, picking Scabbard up. How old is this rat? Dunno, said Ron. Quite old. Quite old. He used to belong to my brother. What power does he have? Said the witch, examining Scabbard closely. Said Ron. The truth was that Scabbard never shown the faintest trace of interesting power. The witch's eyes moved from Scabbard's tattered left ear to his front paw, which had a toe missing, and tooted loudly. He's been through the mile, this one, she said. He was like that when Percy gave him to me, said Ron defensively. An ordinary common or garden rat like this can't be expected to live longer than 3 years or so, said the witch. Now, if you were looking for something a bit more hard-wearing, you might like one of these. She indicated the black rats, who promptly started skipping again. Ron murder, show off. Well, if you don't want a replacement, you can try this rat tonic. The witch, reaching under the counter and bringing out a small red bottle. Okay, said Ron. How much? Ouch! Ron buckled as something huge and orange came soaring from the top of his highest cage, landed on his head, and then propelled itself spinning madly at Scabbard. No, Crookshank, no! Cried the witch, but Scabbard shot from behind her hand like a bar of soap, landed spray-legged on the floor, and then scrapped from the door. Scabbard! Ron shouted, peering out of the shop after him. Harry followed. It took them nearly 10 minutes to find Scabbard. He'd take a refuge under a waste paper bin outside Quality Quidditch Supplies. Ron stuffed the red trembling rat back in his pocket and straightened up, massaging his head. What was that? It was either a very big cat or quite a small tiger, said Harry. Where's Hermione? Probably getting her owls. They made their way back up the crowded street to Magical Mirror. As they reached it, Hermione came out, but she wasn't carrying an owl. Her arm was clamped tightly around the enormous ginger cat. You bought that monster? Said Ron, his mouth hanging open. He's gorgeous, isn't he? Said Hermione, glowing. That was a matter of opinion, thought Harry. The cat's ginger fur was thick and fluffy, but it was definitely a bit bow-legged, and its face looked grumpy and oddly squashed, as though it had run headlong on a brick wall. Now that Scabbard was out of sight, however, the cat was purring contentedly in Hermione's arms. Hermione, that nearly scalped me, said Ron. You didn't mean to, did you, Crookshank? Said Hermione. And what about Scabbard? Said Ron, pointing at the lump of the chest pocket. He needs rest and relaxation. How he's going to get in with that thing around? That reminded me, you forgot your rat tonic, said Hermione, slapping the small red bottle in her hand. And stop worrying, Crookshank will be sleeping in my dormitory and Scabbard yours. What's the problem? Poor Crookshank, that witch said he'd been in there for ages and no one wanted him. I wonder why, said Ron scarletly as they set off toward the leaky cauldron. They found Mr. Weasley sitting in a bar, reading the Daily Prophet. Harry, he said, smiling as he looked up. How are you? Fine, thanks, said Harry as he, Ron and Hermione joined Mr. Weasley with all their shopping. Mr. Weasley put down his paper, and Harry saw now familiar picture of Sirius staring at him. They still haven't caught him, then? He asked. No, said Mr. Weasley, looking extremely grave. They've pulled him. They've pulled us all out for a regular job in the ministry to try and find him, but no luck so far. Will we get a reward if we caught him? Asked Ron. It would be good to get some money, some more money. Don't be ridiculous, Ron, said Mr. Weasley, who on closer inspection looking very strange. Black not going to be caught by a 13-year-old wizard. It's Azkaban guard who will get him back. You mark my word. At that moment, Mrs. Weasley entered the bar, laden with shopping, and followed by the twins, Fred and George, who were about to start their 5th year at Hogwarts. had now the newly elected head boy, Percy, and the Weasley youngest child and only girl, Ginny. Ginny, who's been very taken with Harry, seemed even more heartily embarrassed than usual when she saw him. Perhaps because he had saved her life during the last term at Hogwarts, went very red and muttered hello without looking at him. Percy, however, held out his hand solemnly as though and Harry had never met, and said, "Harry, how nice to see you." "Hello, Percy," said Harry, trying not to laugh. "I hope you're well," said Percy pompously, shaking hand. It was rather like being introduced to the mayor, into the like being introduced to the mayor. "Very well, thanks, Harry," said Fred, elbowing Percy out of the way and bowing deeply. "Simply splendid to see you, old boy." "Marvelous," said George, pushing Fred aside and seizing Harry's hand in turn. "Absolutely spiffing." Percy scowled. "That's enough now," said Mrs. Weasley. "Mum," said Fred, as though he only just spotted her, and seized her hand too. "How really corking to see you." "I said that's enough," said Mrs. Weasley, depositing her shopping in an empty chair. "Hello, Harry dear. I suppose you've heard of our exciting news." She pointed a brand new silver badge on Percy's chest. "Second head boy in the family," she said, swelling with pride. "And last," Fred murmured under his breath. "I don't doubt that," said Mrs. Weasley, frowning suddenly. "I noticed that they haven't made you too perfect." "What do you want to perfect for?" said George, looking revolted at the very idea. "It'll take all the fun out of life." Ginny giggled. "You wanted to set a better example for your sister," snapped Mrs. Weasley. "Ginny got other brother to set her example, mother," said Percy loftily. "I'm going up to change for dinner." He disappeared, and George heaved a sigh. "We tried to shed him in a pyramid," he told Harry, "but Mum spotted us. Reported in the press because Fudge wanted to keep quiet, but Fudge went out in Azkaban the night." Wait a minute. Yeah. Here. Dinner that night was a very enjoyable affair. Tom, the innkeeper, put 3 tables together and parliamented 7 Weasley. Harry and Hermione ate their way through the 5 delicious courses. "How are we getting into King Cross tomorrow, Dad?" asked Fred as they took in the Substance chocolate pudding. "The ministry providing a couple of cars," said Mr. Weasley. Everyone looked up at him. "Why?" said Percy curiously. "It's because of you, Percy," said George seriously. "And there'll be a little flag on the bowman with a HB on them. For Hermitage's big head," said Fred. Everyone except Percy and Mrs. Weasley snored in their pudding. "What ministry providing cars, Father?" Percy asked, again in a dignified voice. "Well, as we haven't got one anymore," said Mr. Weasley, "and as I work there, they're doing me a favor." It was casual, but Harry couldn't help noticing that Mrs. Weasley's ears had gone red, just like Ron did when he was under pressure. "Good job, too," said Mrs. Weasley briskly. "Do you realize how much luggage you'll have got between you? A nice sight you'll be on the Muggle Underground. You are all packed, aren't you?" "Ron hasn't put all of his new things in his trunk yet," said Percy in a low, suffering voice. "He dumped them on my bed." "You better go and pack properly, Ron, because we won't have much time in the morning," Mrs. Weasley called down the table. Ron scowled at Percy. After dinner, everyone felt very full and sleepy. One by one, they made their way upstairs to the room to check the thing for the next day. Ron and Percy were next door to Harry. He had just closed and locked his own trunk when he heard angry voice through the wall, and went to see what was going on. The door of number 12 was ajar, and Percy was shouting, "It was here, on the bedside table. I took it off for polishing. I haven't touched it at all." "I haven't touched it, all right," someone roared back. "What's up?" said Harry. "The head boy badge is gone," said Percy, rounding on Harry. "So Scabbard rat tonic," said Ron, throwing things out of his trunk to look. "I thought I might have left it in the bar." "You're not going anywhere till I've found my badge," yelled Percy. "I'll get Scabbard's stuff and pack." Harry said to Ron, and he went downstairs. Harry was halfway along the passage to the parlor, which was now very dark, when he heard another pair of angry voices coming from the parlor. A second later, he had recognized them as Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. He hesitated, not wanting to know he had heard them rowing, when the sound of his own name made him stop, then move closer to the parlor door. "Make no sense not to tell him," Mr. Weasley was saying heatedly. "Harry got right to know. We've tried to tell Fudge, but he insists on treating Harry like a child. He's 13 years old and, the truth would terrify him," said Mrs. Weasley shrilly. "Do you really want to send Harry back to school with that hanging over him? For heaven's sake, he's happy not knowing." "I don't want to make him miserable. I want to put him on his guard," retorted Mr. Weasley. "You know what Harry and Ron are like, wandering off by themselves. They have even ended up in the Forbidden Forest. But Harry mustn't do that this year, when I think they could have happened to him that night he ran away from home. If the night bus hadn't picked him up at all, I'm prepared to bet he could have been dead before the Ministry found him." "But he's not dead. He's fine. So what's the point? Molly, they say he's a serious black man, and maybe he is, but he was clever enough to escape from Azkaban, and that's supposed to be impossible. It's been a month now, and no one seen hide nor hair of him, and no one cared what Fudge keep telling the Daily Prophet. We're no nearer catching Black than inventing a self-spelling wand. The only thing we know for sure is that Black but Harry will perfectly safe at Hogwarts. We thought Azkaban was perfectly safe. If Black can break out of Azkaban, he can break into Hogwarts." But no one really sure that Black after Harry. There was a thud of wood, and Harry was sure Mr. Weasley had banged his fist on the table. "Molly, how many times do I have to tell you? They didn't report on the press because Fudge wanted to keep quiet. But Fudge went out to Azkaban the night Black escaped. The guardian told Fudge that Black had been talking in his sleep for a while now. Always the same word. He's at Hogwarts. He's at Hogwarts. Black is deranged, Molly, and you want Harry dead. If you ask me, think murdering Harry will bring you-know-who back into power. Black lost everything the night Harry stopped you-know-who. He's had 12 years alone, Azkaban, to brood on that." There was a silence. Harry leant so closer to the door, desperately to hear more. "Well, Arthur, you must do what you think is right. But you're forgetting Albus Dumbledore. I don't think anything could hurt Harry at Hogwarts. Well, Dumbledore, headmaster, I suppose he know about all this." "Of course he know. We had to ask him. He mind Azkaban guards stationing themselves around the entrance to the school ground. He wasn't happy about it, but he agreed. Not happy? Why shouldn't he be happy if they're there to catch Black? Dumbledore isn't fond of Azkaban guard," said Mr. Weasley heavily. "Nor am I, if it come to that. But when you're dealing with a wizard like Black, sometimes you have to join forces with those you'd rather avoid. If they save Harry, then I will never say another word against them," said Mr. Weasley wearily. "It's late, Molly. We'd better go up." He heard chairs move. As quietly as he could, he hurried down the passage to the bar and out of sight. The parlor door opened, and a few seconds later, footsteps told him that Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were now climbing the stair. The bottle of rat tonic was lying under the table they had sat at earlier. Harry waited until he heard Mrs. Weasley bedroom door close, and then headed back upstairs with the bottle. Fred and George were crouching in the shadow on the landing, heaving with laughter as they listened to Percy dismating his and Ron room in search for his badge. "We've got it," Fred whispered to Harry. "We've been improving it. The badge now read Big Head Boy." Harry forced aloud and went to give Ron the rat tonic, then shut himself in the rooms, then lay down on his bed. So Sirius Black was after him. That explained everything. Fudge had been let in with him because he was so relieved to find him alive. He made Harry promise to stay in Diagon Alley, where there were plenty of wizards to keep an eye on him. And he was sending two ministry cars to take them all to the station tomorrow, so that the Weasley could look after Harry. And until Harry was on the train, Harry lay listening to the muffled shouting next door, and wondered why he didn't feel more scared. Sirius Black had murdered 13 people with one curse. Mr. Weasley obviously thought Harry would be panic-stricken if he knew the truth, but Harry happened to agree wholeheartedly with Mrs. Weasley that the safest place on the earth was whether Albus Dumbledore happened to be. Didn't people always say that Dumbledore was the only person Lord Voldemort had ever been afraid of? Surely Black as Voldemort's right-hand man would be just as frightened of him, and that there were these Azkaban guards everywhere. Kept talking about they seemed to scare most people senseless, so they were stationed all around the school. Black's chance of getting inside seemed to be very remote. No, all in all, the thing that bothered Harry most was the fact that his chance of visiting Hogsmeade now looked like zero. Nobody would want Harry to leave the safety of the castle until Black was caught. In fact, Harry suspected his every move would be careful watches until his danger had passed. He scowled the dark ceiling. Did they think he couldn't look after himself? He escaped Lord Voldemort 3 times. He wasn't completely useless. Unbidden, the image of Beast in the Shadow of Mongolian Crescent crossed his mind. What to do when you know the worst is coming? I'm not going to be murdered, Harry said out loud. That's the spirit, dear, said the mirror sleepily.